Hi, I'm John DiArmo with the Coquille Ice Sword Group, and today we're talking about Article 26. So, let's begin. Article 26, holding back and letting go the spirit. Holding back the spirit, or letting go the spirit, should be used appropriately according to the existing objective as well as the temporal circumstance. Whilst holding the sword, you should usually let go the outer spirit, no kokoro, and hold back the inner spirit, Shin no kokoro. But, in the moment when you strike the opponent in earnest, you should let go the inner spirit and hold back inside the outer spirit. The methods of this holding back or letting go the spirit differ greatly depending on the various situations. This should be carefully considered. So, we have a lot to dive into here. First, the words used for holding back the spirit are Zanshin. Zanshin is it literally means the remaining mind, the mind that remains in place. We can think of this as the focused mind or the committed mind. Letting go the spirit, the words here used are Hoshin, the free mind, the mind that moves about without necessary direction. Now, these terms, Zanshin specifically, is a classic term associated with Zen, and oftentimes people can get mixed up about the association between Musashi and his teachings and Zen philosophy. In the Gorin no Sho, of course, he starts off by saying, "Hey, in this book, I'm not using any Zen language or any language of the old religions or of classic works of literature. I'm just using my own words." And people equate that to mean that Zen doesn't play any role in Musashi's method. Of course, anyone with any familiarity with the actual method realizes that this is preposterous. The ideas of Zen have deeply, deeply influenced Musashi, the way he thinks, and the work that he developed. Now, of course, there will be critics who come out and say, "Oh, you Westerners, you're only familiar with Zen Buddhism. You're not familiar with other forms of Buddhism. So you see these things and you just assume that this must be Zen, and Musashi must have been a Zen Buddhist." And they say that is not accurate. This argument is just full of holes, right? It ignores the historical information we have about the various Zen masters that Musashi interacted with. It ignores the use of terminology and phrasing that is quite specific to Zen, and it really it's just another way of sort of anti-hero worship, where everyone likes George Washington. George Washington must have really been a bad guy. Let me talk about all his bad things, right? And it's really just a ploy for people to go, "Hey, look, I know so much because I'm going to tell you how you're wrong," and that's it's simply not beneficial in any respect. It's not to say that correcting people so that they have an accurate understanding of something isn't useful, but this and that are separate things. Because even if we were to suppose that either his interactions with Zen masters did not happen, or that he came away with them without any kind of cross-pollination of ideas, or that indeed he didn't adopt any of their thoughts or philosophies, he's still expressing thoughts and ideas and philosophies that are otherwise quite unique to Zen. So even if he came there by his own route, separate from the traditional Zen method, the ideas are still the same. He still came to the same place. And so because of that, studying and understanding Zen, to understand Musashi's mindset, his thought process, his foundation of how he builds and thinks about the world, is still useful and still quite germane to this exploration of who he was and his method. So, yeah. Now, on to the article itself. So, in the end, he tries to make it clear that it's like, hey, when you use this is not really a specific instance. It's not A happens, you do B, right? But rather that it changes based on the circumstances, and that you have to develop a feel for it. But in general, when you want to work on a person, you start off your ino kokoro, your outside spirit, the spirit that people see in your body's work, should be Hoshin, right? It should be free, it should be open, it shouldn't appear to be overly contrived, overly managed, right? You should appear on the outside to respond naturally and fluidly without a lot of intention, right? But on the inside, your Shin no kokoro, your true heart, your true spirit, should be that of Zanshin. A mind that remains focused on its task, on its place, on what its objective is, right? But when you decide to cut the person in earnest, right? And this phrasing is important because people can misunderstand this to mean like, oh, well, every time I want to cut the person, I switch modes to this. And now I'm focused on the outside and free on the inside. That's not what it is, right? You can kill a person with Zanshin, you can kill a person with Hoshin, right? It's not that you have to have one over the other. That's not it at all, right? It's rather that when you decide to strike the opponent in earnest, in other words, when you have decided that this is the strike that I need to make, and I'm going to make it and completely just devastate this person, destroy their posture, destroy their position, destroy their structure, their body, right? That on the outside, you should have Zanshin. In other words, you come in and you cut, full-bodied, full-directedness, bam, and they see it. While on the inside, in your real heart, you're light, right? You're easy, you're adaptive, you're taking in everything, right? Right. And of course, hopefully you've already picked up on the duality here, the same sort of yin-yang, yin-yo, controlled versus free, focused versus open, right? Mentality that, of course, permeates all of Musashi's work. This is not particularly easy to practice. Doing it in solo work and in kata is informative intellectually, for sure, and that should be your foundation. But this is not the type of thing that will stick to you unless you practice it with kumitachi, with sparring. Because it's only in sparring that you'll really begin to see the reasons and benefits behind it. I can talk about it, but it's just going to be words, right? And it's just sound, right? It's not going to be useful for real, right? But once you play with it for a while, right, you'll start to see kind of miraculous things, right? But I'll leave you there with it. As always, if you want to understand this work, you have to pick up a sword and go train.